Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish. I am so excited to introduce our special guest today, Abby Zachritz. She is the founder of Advocacy Abby and a co-founder to Connect, an organization with the largest connection of up-to-date grant opportunities for families during major life moments. Abby describes herself and her family as spicy, loud, busy, and full of life. She will continue to advocate against all odds because of the life experiences that she has gone through. Abby, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that I was introduced to Abby and I started to dig into those resources that she's providing with Connect, and I just thought, this is amazing. We need to tell the world about this.
Yeah, it's definitely been an exciting and quick journey, actually. Really proud to be a part of it.
Yep, perfect. So I think it would be great to be able to give some background and context into how you even got to the place with the great name, by the way, Advocacy Abby. And so can you share a little bit about your family and your story that has got you to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a mother of 5. We started having kiddos in 2007, and I love being a mom. Still love being a mom. One of those things that I never would have imagined before I got married that I'd have a large family, but absolutely love being a large family. We moved to Gainesville, Florida from Fort Myers, Florida in 2014, actually 2013, but about 2014 we launched a church here in Gainesville, and my husband was the head pastor. And we had just celebrated Easter, and I was pregnant with my 5th child, who was our little surprise. Everybody says never do big major things when you're having kids, like still getting pregnant. And we completely uprooted, moved to Gainesville, and started a church. And we were just celebrating Easter. It was Tuesday, and we had just celebrated our Easter service. We had a ton of new people show up. It was really exciting for our whole staff. They were leaving, and we were getting ready for an event for our preschooler at the time. He was having a spring recital at his preschool, and we had left Wyatt in a room cleaning up. He was actually pastoring his older brother, playing Legos. I walked in a different room and walked back, and we couldn't find him. He had gotten out through our doggy door and got into our pool, and he had drowned. And so when we saw him, immediately started CPR. My husband jumped in, got him out, started CPR, couldn't get anything going. The miracle behind part of that is the fire department was about 20 minutes away. Typically, they would have took them 15-20 minutes to get to us. They had gotten a really bogus call. They had showed up, and they were only 3 minutes from our house, so they arrived really, really quick, way quicker than they would have typically. And they jumped in and started trying to resuscitate Wyatt. EMT showed up, and I got in the ambulance with them and drove to the hospital, and they rushed him into the emergency room. And if you're ever in a situation like that, you don't get to stay with them. They push the parents to another room because they can't be distracted by you. They need to focus. So they put me in the waiting room, and I was just wailing, like on my face, crying, begging God to save my son. And a nurse came in. I have no idea how much time had passed. It couldn't have been too long, but they came in, and she told me that I had to say goodbye to my son because he wasn't going to make it, and that I wasn't going to be allowed in unless I pulled myself together. They weren't going to let me in the room. So I immediately, it was that was crazy. I immediately stopped because there was nothing going to, keep me from seeing my son. So I walked in, and I guess this is protocol. They didn't tell me at the time. Obviously, they told me after. but they were doing chest compressions and they stopped. But there was a whole room full of people, and I thought it was weird that there was one person doing chest compressions and stopped. And apparently that's protocol to help the parent grasp that the child's gone.
Yeah.
And so I walked in, and he was as blue as like the color baby blue. Like, he was blue. And I just began to cry and beg them to not stop, to keep working on my baby. Please, please keep working on him. And beg Jesus. I just started screaming, Jesus, save him. And Dr. Bunalai was the doctor at the time. He was the longest running intensivist at Shands Hospital, UF Health. And intensivist just means the doctors that see the really, really sick kids in emergency situations. They specialize in lungs. They specialize in, coming back to life. They specialize in these things. And they had already looked at his heart to make sure, because sometimes they don't pick up a beat with a stethoscope. They wanted to make sure his heart wasn't beating, and it wasn't. So he said, show mom his heart. And he put the machine on his heart, and I looked up at the screen, and I just remember being so confused because his heart was beating and you could hear it. And all of a sudden, all those people, all 15 people, just jumped on Wyatt, and they whisked me out of the room. He had come back to life, and they had never seen it, ever. They said they had never seen it before, and they've never seen it since the last time I talked to a nurse practitioner that was there. So they rushed Wyatt upstairs to the PICU after they had, got him stable enough to go to the PICU. And they told us the odds of him making it through the night are very slim. They put him on a cold bed. It's where they bring your body temperature really cold, trying to keep swelling down for your brain and different things. For 3 days he was on a cold bed. And then they said, the odds of him getting past the 3 days are slim. And then when he got past that, they said the odds of him, ever having they did an MRI in his brain, and they said everything's gone. They said he had global brain damage. Everything is completely gone. He's in a vegetative state. His kidneys, they were having to give him medicine to make his kidneys regulate, just use the bathroom, and he was obviously unconscious. And they're like, his kidneys, nothing will work on its own. He's going to have medicine the rest of his life. And within a couple days, his kidneys started working. And then then we began the journey. I mean, I had one doctor come in, Dr. Bunalai, and he said, I can't explain this, but I know that you guys have to keep hoping for him. He was the only doctor that was like that, actually, because most doctors, they kind of give you worst case scenario because they don't want to give you false hope. That's kind of what they're taught in med school, give low expectations, low bar. But I'm such a firm believer, and especially after our experience, that hope has never killed anybody. It's a lack of that has. And so we just kept believing and professing and saying our son is healed. And we started this journey. And so we left the PICU after 52 days of trying to get him stable enough to leave the PICU. Went to intensive recovery at Brooks Rehab. And that's where I realized we're going to need a lot. We're going to need a lot. And I kept as a mom, I kept thinking, when does he wake up? That's what I kept thinking. When is, in the movies you watch the kids and they kind of oh, wow, that was crazy. It's not like that. I didn't understand brain injury. I didn't understand, that it's going to take time and things have to rewire. The beautiful part about the brain is it can rewire. Things that were there were no longer there, and so it started making other pathways. So they told us the part that controls emotion was gone, his basal ganglia, his hypothalamus. They said all of it was gone, the part that regulates his body. And I remember to this day, we had done fundraising and used grants to get a hyperbaric chamber because we kept hearing about oxygen therapy, and no doctors would get behind it. There was one local that did. So she wrote a script. And we got a chamber after a lot of fundraising and grants and our community surrounding us. And the first time he smiled, and it was a really crooked smile because he had palsy really bad on his face. Actually, I thought he had complete palsy, but I realized when he smiled, His little right side went up. Now he has a huge smile. He smiles all the time and laughs all the time. It's very sarcastic. But we began this journey, and we realized we need a lot of things that are not covered by insurance. And so I started finding grants. And me and my husband, we didn't have a lot of means. We were working class people. But we decided that money would not be the thing that kept our son from getting what he needed. And we were going to find a way.
This is a beautiful, beautiful story. I'm actually just processing it because, as a father of children and young children, I try and put myself in your shoes, having gone through that experience leading up to that moment prior to the heartbeat. Mm-hmm. And I can't process that. And so thank you for sharing that, because that just creates a tremendous sense of empathy, and I can't imagine what you must have felt. And then in that moment, in that miracle. And so, something that I speak openly about is there are things that you just simply can't explain, other than there is a divine power. There is an all-knowing and all-loving God that helps us and that loves us. And that in my mind is the only way that can be explained, how that heartbeat in a room full of medical professionals that said that's not possible actually became possible.
Yeah, it was 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
And they actually documented spontaneous heartbeat. That's what they put in his medical records. They didn't have an explanation.
Yeah. And so from that moment, I just feel that that's so symbolic of that moment when that heartbeat appeared. That's when the journey began. And this journey that you are now on, and that you are fully consecrating yourself to, both as a mother, both as a caretaker, but also professionally, in that you are helping many, many, many other families be able to pass through and to succeed in their journey as well. And so I'm a firm believer in this concept of life and trusting with experiences and this opportunity to serve the pain that we know best. And you're a perfect example of that, Abby. And so share with us about what has come from this. Wyatt, I follow you guys on social media, and Wyatt is just awesome. Super, you're exactly described that right. Very smiley and just a great, handsome young man. And so share with us now what has come from this and how you are helping other families.
Yeah, so as a result, I started telling mom to mom other grants. I'd have a mom reach out and be like, how did you fly across the nation and get stem cell treatment? How could you afford that? And I was like, well, it was this grant, or, my community, we did a fundraiser. And one of the things I had to get really comfortable with is asking, but doing, realizing I had to do a lot of work with it. And so when I would ask my community to get behind something, I would also share that I was looking for grants, that I was trying to find resources, that I wasn't just hoping they would show up. I was working hard alongside them, and people tend to respond to that really well. And then in December, the end of December, beginning of January, I was speaking to my best friend, and she was like, you should just get on Instagram and just share. You really got to share your story. And I had had a small community called Relentless Hope on Facebook. It's still there. Families can join and just be a conversation piece. It's like a community of all kinds of different disabilities or diagnosis. But I had fallen away from it a little bit during some trials with my son. He had started having seizures. And so we just really had to focus and get him in a good place. And then when I came back, I thought, I'm just going to give every grant, because I had a list of grants that we had been using and that I would share person to person. And when I was in my community, Relentless Hope, every Friday I would have Fabulous Foundation Friday. And I realized that's what people love. They wanted that, and they wanted expert advice. So I would interview experts, leaders in stem cell therapy, and I that took a lot of time, the interviews, and so I kind of just said, I'm just going to share all these resources, see if there's a need, because maybe it's not a big of need. Maybe I have reached most of the families, who knows? And I started posting on Instagram, and the response was insane. I had therapists, doctors, moms, dads, caregivers, grandmas, aunts, cousins. Everybody was saying, hey, my kid needs this, or hey, could you find this, or have you found a
Yeah.
grant for this? And I realized there was a great need, and that's where I met Support Now, which is a organization that does crowdsourcing and volunteer organizations and organizing and meal organizing all in one platform. And they kind of asked, what's your goal? What's your vision? And I said, well, if I could do anything, that's actually what they asked. If you could do anything, what would it be
It's
with
a
what you're
great question.
doing? Yeah, it was. Honestly, they pushed me forward a little bit in my thinking. And I said, well, it would be to create a platform where people could do what I'm doing one-on-one with them. They could sort their diagnosis. They could sort by diagnosis. They could find the grant that they need, what they're looking for specifically, equipment therapy, and they're actually grants that are living and breathing. And they're like, well, why don't we just do that? Why don't we just back that? And so they did. They helped me create it. I filled it, and we've been going ever since, adding new grants every single day. We had several thousand people sign up within the first 2 weeks. The need is so big.
Wow.
And we've
Wow.
not spent any marketing money, nothing. We're just telling people person to person, this exists, and every day more and more people are signing up.
Yeah, and so I have spent some time with Support Now and looking at the specific platform for Connect, and I can say that it is incredible. It's a service that is so needed, and highly encourage anybody listening to this that is on the disability community to check this out, because this is the real deal. And so share with us more around Connect and the ability to be able to talk or to be able to sort again by diagnosis. Like, this is real life money that's out there for families. That it's available. Most families don't know about this, and it's for all disabilities. Like, you
Yes.
have the ability to organize this and know exactly what disabilities are there available for your specific situation. Maybe
Yeah.
elaborate more on that.
Yeah. So the goal is to be as broad as possible, as in add every diagnosis under the sun and every grant we can find, and then make each person's individual experience as custom as possible. And so when you come in, if you have, let's say you have a rare diagnosis, and you see your diagnosis, well, it'll go under. Our filter systems funnel up. And so if you're in Utah and you have a rare diagnosis, you're not only going to see all your specific diagnosis grants, anything that's specific for you, but you'll see anything under rare diagnosis, and you'll see anything under just diagnosis in general. And so any
Yeah.
kind of grant that will help with equipment or help with therapy or help with treatment or camps. We also have academic scholarships and respite. All of that is there. And you'll have access all the way down to the most specific grant, but anything you also could qualify for based on just having a diagnosis in general. We also have made a sorting option where, as you're looking through the grants, you can click our little lightning bolt, and you can put, I favorite this one, I want to hide this one, I don't need this, I've applied to this one, and kind of keep a record I've received from this one. And most of these grants are just families that saw a
Yeah.
need and filled a need. So they're individual grants. So I know for a long time, I'm by the University of Florida, and many people thought grants, they thought for not-for-profits. They
Yeah.
thought business grants or you're researching something grant. But these are grants for families, for individuals that need support. So if you want to call them scholarships, you could do that. But
Yeah.
most of them go by the word or the term grant, and they're out there. And there's a lot of people. Before, I've actually had foundations reach out to me and go, I used to have to find people like to give my money to. I couldn't find enough people to apply. Now they're like, oh my goodness, we went through our budget really quick because
Good
Connect's
job,
there.
Abby.
Yeah. Well, and they say, you know what? They go, we love it. We love it because that means that we are serving a need, and that just means we're going to
Right.
fundraise more. And
That's
so
right.
I'm a firm believer that there's enough room at the table. We can all sit down, and then the demand is going to be so great that the market is going to respond. People are going to say, I'm going to make more not-for-profits. I'm going
That's
to,
right.
I'm going to be able to show those that support our not-for-profit how much we're asked for and how much we're able to give away. And it's just going to continue to grow.
I think that's an important thing to point out, in that as you were sharing your story, Abby, you have tremendous need. You have a need for these grants in your own personal situation. And you went and you did the homework. You became the expert on what was available out there, and you found a wealth of resources available for your family. And I think it's so important that we point out to our listeners that when you found that information, you took the approach of abundance. And you said, I want to take this information and share it with the world, at risk of potentially eliminating grants that you otherwise would have been eligible for that would have went to another family. But that spirit of abundance and your desire to really take what you have been entrusted and pay that forward, that's really how we have a rising tide raises all boats. And you're right. The market will respond to this. There is unlimited opportunity for the market to respond to this, and it will, because of that singular choice that was very unselfish to do so. So great job on that.
Oh, thank you. It does, I think in the back of your mind, you always hear, but what if, and then we just decided what if, okay. Like God will provide. He has every step of the way. And so, yeah, and it is when I get a message from a mom or a dad or a sister saying my brother got his first bicycle, or they were able to go to a Wish trip, or that has been worth every bit of it.
Yeah, most definitely. So one thing I want to make note of is that some of these grants are means tested, meaning that you have to be eligible or qualify from a financial standpoint, but there's other grants that are on there that aren't, that is not based on income. It's not based on financial means. It's simply based on need, from the standpoint of you need this service regardless of the financial situation that you're in. And so I think that's a really important thing to point out as well.
Yeah, actually, when you're in the platform, so it's 100% free for families. Anybody can create a free profile and use the platform. You go to the view button, and when you go view, it'll tell you any kind of criteria that you have to meet in order to get this grant. So part of the whole reason we created the platform is to take the burden off the families. So you don't have to search through a website trying to figure out, does my kid qualify? Some of it's not on the website. Sometimes we've emailed them and said, hey, can you just tell me the parameters where you'll give? Is there an age limit? What's the criteria? But others, I actually really appreciate the grants. I appreciate all the grants, but I really appreciate the ones that don't consider income, because you could be a middle class or even upper class family financially, and the average child, according to the Department of Agriculture, it costs $240,000 to raise a neurotypical healthy kid. Okay, it costs $1.4 million to raise a child with a diagnosis or disability. It's just to say, well, you make this, so you should be fine. It's just not fair. Nobody typically has to buy, incontinence supplies for 20 years. Yeah, people don't typically have to buy adaptive seating or go to therapy, physical therapy or occupational therapy or speech therapy for years at a time. That's just not normal. And so that's a cost that is not meant to be bared by yourself. Like I'm a firm believer that that's where our community should come in. And so when and if grants aren't enough, that's where I use resources like Support Now to fundraise, to gather those kind of supports, because the burden's just too much to bear alone.
Yeah, that's great. So I'd love to ask, you go back to the conversation that you had with Support Now, and they asked that question of, if you could wave your magic wand, what would this look like? And it caused you to dream bigger than what you were right then. And lo and behold, here we are a very short time later. That vision is a reality, and you are doing that right now. And so I actually want to ask that question again. You had your wish granted in a very real way. What now? What do you see in the future for the work that you're doing?
So I've started to consult organizations, which has been great, because it really means that these companies are caring for their clients. Like they are spending their time, energy, money, effort to hire me to know how to better serve their clients, how to fill the gap financially when a client says my insurance won't cover this or that. So that's been very rewarding. I've also, with the platform, I see this being in every hospital with every social worker across all North America. Like, that is one of my big goals. Like, I would love to see every social worker, when a child is about to be discharged or a family's coming in for consistent treatment, that they go, not only here's your discharge papers and we wish you luck, but here's a list of 78 organizations that can financially help you, from respite to camps to therapy to treatment, all of it. And here it is. And they send them the link, and the parent has ongoing support. Because when we left the hospital, it was kind of like, we saved your son. Good luck.
Yeah.
We hope you work
Yeah.
out. We didn't know where to begin. Not
Yeah.
only do a lot of these not-for-profits and grants that are on my site, a lot of them have like social support too. They have community outings, events, other parents that you could reach out to one and say, hey, I just need another parent to talk to. I need to know what to expect. And so my goal is to be in every hospital, for people not to remember how hard it was before Support Now and Connect came into their hands. That's a big goal of ours.
It's a beautiful vision. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to wrap up with asking one more question. And, you started by sharing about your family. I'm looking at your family here as it relates to just an amazing family that it is, very talented family. You have a daughter that's going to be playing Division I volleyball here very soon, which is amazing. You have a football player, a basketball player, and then there's a baseball player down there as well. So covered. And inside of this, second to the youngest is Wyatt, right? And so can you share with us the positive impact that this has had on your family? There's no doubt there's been challenges, but I also believe in my heart that there's been very positive impact. And could you share with us what that might be for your family?
Absolutely. So early on, he had a really tremendous impact on our local community. Actually, not even local, because the whole world began to pray for him. People were praying in Istanbul. They were praying at the Vatican. They were praying all over. So people got to spend time praying and then seeing their prayer answered, that he was alive. I've seen many, many people give their lives to Christ as a result of I call my son a minister, because his life is a ministry. Like, the people, when people see him, they're in awe of how far he's come, knowing, especially because I live in a medical community, right? So they see the worst of the worst a lot. So when Wyatt walks into a room, when Wyatt wheels into a room, because he's in a wheelchair, and says hi with his eye gaze, communicating with his eyes, these are some of the same doctors and nurses and therapists that saw when they thought, he's not even going to make it, much less. So for him to be able to encourage what they do and encourage other families, I got to tell a mom just the other day who's really struggling because her son has used eye gaze for a year now and she just doesn't see him using it. It took Wyatt, it wasn't until maybe 8 years into his journey that part just connected, and now he's using it all the time.
Wow.
He's doing math problems. He's reading books. Like, and it's just amazing, the brain. And so he's able to push others forward with hope. My other children are incredibly caring and kind. When they see other people, they say, hey man, what's up? Where normally people wouldn't address a child that seems like they're not, they appear not present, but they very much are. My youngest son, Luke, he was born after Wyatt's accident. I was 7 months pregnant when it happened. And so we named him Luke Cooper, which means light in a barrel. Luke means bringer of light. He is such a joy, and he's hilarious, and he's so funny. So all he's known of Wyatt is post-injury. And he got to come home. His teacher read a book called Outside of My Mind. And it's all about a little girl with cerebral palsy that she is non-ambulatory. She's nonverbal. She does speak with a device like Wyatt. She has some drool. And Wyatt has all those things. And to hear him come home so excited and to joyfully tell his class, my brother's smart like her too. My brother's like that. And to see the whole class kind of like, oh, he's just like us. And to see them treat him
Right.
just like us, or just like them, has been such a joy. Such a joy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I believe that life doesn't happen to us, life happens for us. And that with these experiences that come gives us wonderful stewardship to be able to pay it forward and to help others. And what you've just described over the last bit as we visited is a perfect example of that. I'm just very thankful that our paths have crossed. Super, super thankful for that, Abby. So keep up the great work. I'm very thankful for you being a guest on our show today. Again, highly encourage our listeners to check this out. This is super important. We'll put it in the information in the show notes. Also, would encourage you to give Abby a follow on her Instagram page because it's awesome. She does a great job. She's a really good follow. So thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing also. It's really encouraging, especially as a dad, to see you kind of forging the path. It's really great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.